This is episode 8 of my boxed cake mix series, where I show you how to take this to the next level. And there really is so many different kinds of desserts you can make with them, so stick around because you're gonna love these recipes. Hey y'all, I'm Valerie and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I'm sharing 6 doctored up boxed cake mix recipes that your family is gonna go crazy over. Okay y'all, let's get started. This orange juice cake turned out so good. To make it, in a large bowl, you're gonna add one 15.25 ounce box of yellow cake mix. Now, if you wanted to amp up that flavor even more, and you can get your hands on an orange cake mix, I'm sure that would work great too. I also added a small box of vanilla instant pudding, 1 tablespoon of orange zest, 4 eggs, followed by 3/4 cup of oil, 1 cup of sour cream, and for the orange juice part, I used a container of the frozen orange juice concentrate. We're not going to use the whole container here, and you do want to make sure it's completely thawed out before you use it, but right now we're adding in 3/4 cup of that orange juice concentrate. Now you're going to mix this for about 2 minutes maybe until it's well combined. I'm making this in a Bundt pan, and I did grease it and I sprayed it with nonstick spray. And I highly recommend using that Baker's Joy, especially for something like this. Alright, now I'm just pouring in that batter, and you do want to smooth it out as evenly as possible on the top. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 325, anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted comes out clean. Now as soon as that comes out of the oven, we're going to make up a glaze to pour over it. That way it sinks all down into that cake. Over on the stove top, in a large skillet, I melted down 4 tablespoons of butter, and to that I added 1/2 cup of that orange juice concentrate, along with 2 cups of powdered sugar. You're going to cook this on medium-low heat and whisk it until all that sugar has dissolved. Do y'all love orange? I do. My favorite is the mandarin orange dessert that my daddy makes. I'll have to make that for Christmas this year. Okay, this glaze is ready to go, so we're going to move back over to the counter. Now, you can use anything you want here, but I suggest using something small. This glaze is thin, so it will sink down into them. You just don't want to use like the end of a wooden spoon. I think that would give too big of a hole. If you were pouring pudding over, it would be a different story, but since this glaze is really thin, you want to do as many small holes in the top of that cake as you can. And when you poke those holes in there, you want to poke almost all the way to the bottom. Then I poured over that glaze, and I tried to work it to the middle. I kind of took my spoon and kind of pressed down in the center there. That way the glaze would run to the center and soak in, instead of running down the sides. And I do want to say this cake is very moist, so if that's not your thing, you can feel free to cut that glaze in half. And I did let it sit for about 15 minutes after I got the glaze on there, then I flipped it out onto a cake plate. And y'all, this cake was absolutely delicious. In fact, my mom said that this was one of her absolute favorite desserts that I have ever made. That orange flavor was there and I loved it, and y'all, that glaze just took it to a whole new level. And y'all know the holidays are right around the corner. This would be a perfect holiday dessert. I ate this warm because I couldn't wait to try it, but you do need to store it in the refrigerator, and it is even better chilled. And let me introduce you to the strawberry pie bars that my husband could not stay out of. To a large bowl, you're going to add 2 15.25 ounce boxes of white cake mix. You could also use a vanilla cake mix for this. Then to that cake mix, you're going to add 2 sticks of melted butter. And I know that seems like a lot, but you just gotta trust me on this one. Now you're gonna mix this until it's well combined, and that mixture will be very, very crumbly. But that is just fine. That is exactly how it's supposed to be. I'm using a 10 by 15 for this. It's a jelly roll pan. You can use a 9 by 13, but the bars will be very thick. And you do want to make sure you line it with some foil or parchment paper. That way you can lift the bars out when you're done. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot harder to get them out without breaking them. And it'll also be a good idea if you spray that foil with some nonstick spray. Now you're going to take that crumbly cake mix and butter mixture and you're going to add 2/3 of it to the bottom of that pan. Then you're going to do your best to spread it out into an even layer and then press it down tight. You could even use like a large measuring cup to really pack it down in there. Now on top of that crust layer, we're going to spread over 1 can of cherry pie filling. Or any pie filling of your choice. And I did try to cut those strawberries up just so there wasn't big pieces in there. I'm sure this would be really good with cherry pie filling or even blueberry pie filling. And after I got it on there, I did try to spread it out as evenly and as best as I could. And try to spread those strawberries out, that way they're not clumped together all in one spot. Then over the top of that, you're going to sprinkle over what you have left of that crust mixture. What we reserved from earlier. And I don't know what I was trying to do here, but it worked. I kind of squeezed together some of that crust as I was sprinkling it over. That way you could see some of that strawberry pie filling in between. Now this bakes at 350 for 30 to 35 minutes. Or until the top around the edges start to get slightly golden brown. And you could leave it like this if you want, but I decided to do a little glaze to drizzle over the top. And that was 1 cup of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and anywhere from 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk. The less milk you use, the thicker that glaze will be. And I just poured it into a piping bag, that way it was easier to drizzle over the top. I let them cool completely before I lifted them out of the pan and cut them into bars. These were absolutely delicious. They would be perfect for a potluck, or even a holiday party, a family get-together, and I can't wait to try them with the blueberry pie filling. Oh, and you could also change up the cake mix and maybe do a lemon cake mix instead of the white, and have like strawberry lemonade bars. That bottom layer was a little crunchy like a cookie, and I love that strawberry pie filling, and that glaze is a must. This is a 3-ingredient banana bread, and it was so easy to make. In a large bowl, you're going to add in 3 to 4 whole ripe bananas. Mine were a little on the smaller side, so I did 4. You can mash them up really good with a fork or do like me and use a mixer. Okay, now to those mashed bananas, you're going to add 1 box, a 15.25 ounce box of yellow cake mix, and 2 eggs. Now you can use your electric mixer and mix this until it's well combined. Now this is optional, but I wanted a little chocolate in here, and I probably should have tossed those chocolate chips around in some flour before I added them in, but I did not. They did sink to the bottom a little bit, so I suggest tossing them in a little flour. You can use 2 small loaf pans. I've got a large one, so I'm just using 1 large one. And I did spray it really good with nonstick spray. Now you're going to pour in that banana bread batter. I have to say, so far, this was like the easiest banana bread I ever made. And I just smoothed it out just a little bit on top. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for 35 to 40 minutes. Mine took a little longer because I was using 1 loaf pan. It got nice and golden brown on top, and it smelled amazing. You see what I was talking about with the chocolate chips? It was still so good though, I'm telling you. But next time I make this, I will make sure I toss those chocolate chips around in some flour. For some reason, that just helps them not to sink to the bottom. Oh, and this one, the kids had a fit over it. They loved it. And it's great to make if you have some ripe bananas that you need to use up, or if you just want a quick and easy sweet treat. Do y'all love banana bread? This one right here was a winner for sure. This chocolate dump cake is for all my chocolate lovers out there. I'm using a 9x13 baking dish, and you do want to grease the bottom or spray it with nonstick spray. I'm adding in a 15.25 ounce box of dark chocolate fudge cake mix, along with 1 small box of instant chocolate pudding. And to add even more chocolate to this, I added in about 1.5 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips. I saved that other half cup to sprinkle over the top. Then you're going to pour in 2 cups of milk, and I'm just using 2%. Now you're just going to get a spoon and mix it until it's well combined. If you wanted to do this in another bowl and then pour it in here, you absolutely could, but this is so much easier and it's less dishes to wash. Oh, and this batter is very thick, so do your best to spread it out. Oh, and here I'm sprinkling over the rest of those chocolate chips. Now this bakes at 350 for 25 to 35 minutes, or until the middle is completely set. This was so good, and you can serve it however you like, but I just topped it with some vanilla ice cream. And it is definitely delicious served warm right out of the oven. And this was more dense than a regular cake, kind of like a cross between a brownie and a cake. And if I'd had some hot fudge sauce, I would have poured that over the top too. We are all definitely chocolate lovers in this house. This coconut poke cake was simple but amazing. To begin, in a large bowl, I added a 15.25 ounce box of white cake mix. And we're going to mix this up according to the directions on the back of that box. Except I always use an extra egg, and I always use milk instead of water. And to give this cake a little extra flavor, I added a 1/2 teaspoon of coconut extract. And I always poke a hole in the top with a pin. That's how I get it out. It's easier. If I pull that whole top off, it seems like when I try to pour it, it goes everywhere. Now you're going to mix this up until it's well combined. By the way, if you're new, I would really love to have you here. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. That way you get notified of all my future videos. I'm making this in a 9x13 baking dish. You could also use a pan. And I did spray it with nonstick spray. This is my absolute favorite. It's the Baker's Joy. I love it. Okay, now I'm just pouring in that cake batter, and you're going to smooth it out into an even layer. Now this goes into the oven to bake according to the directions on the back of the box. As soon as it comes out of the oven, you can go ahead and poke holes in it now if you want, but I went ahead and set it to the side so I can make up the coconut stuff that we're going to pour over the top. In a small bowl, I mixed together 1 can of cream of coconut. It's not the same thing as coconut milk. Make sure it says cream of coconut. And 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. Now you're just going to stir that together until it's combined. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, what is your favorite holiday flavor? What flavors what desserts do you look forward to the most? Okay, now I'm grabbing that cake, and you want to use anything you got. You can use the end of a wooden spoon. I'm using my mixer attachment, and you're going to poke holes all over the top of that cake. The more holes, the better. Now you're going to take that cream of coconut and sweetened condensed milk mixture and pour it all over the top. And I know it does seem like a lot, but trust me, it will soak into that cake. And I did this a little at a time because I'm telling you, I have poured something over a poke cake before and it just spilled right out over the top. So pour half, let it soak in, and then pour on the rest. And it will run down towards the sides, so I try to work it back up towards that middle just until it soaks in. And if you need to, you can let it sit out on the counter until it's completely soaked in before we add the topping. Now you can make your own homemade whipped cream. I'm sure that would be even better, but I don't have time for all that. So I'm taking the easy way out. I used 8 ounces of Cool Whip topping and just spread it on the top of that cake. Then over the top of that, you're going to add anywhere from 2 to 3 cups of shredded sweetened coconut. And you do want to try to spread it out. That way everybody gets a little coconut topping in there. If you want to toast your coconut before you add it on, you can do that too, but I like it just like this. And this cake is better if you let it sit in the refrigerator overnight to completely chill. This cake is absolutely delicious. I love anything coconut, so what can I say? It has the perfect amount of coconut flavor. My daddy had a fit over it actually. And y'all, a lot of these recipes, mainly desserts that I make, are my daddy's suggestions and ideas. Good thing he lives next door, because you know we couldn't eat all these sweets by ourselves. And I'm just going to have to talk him into doing a little guest appearance on here sometime. And when you see him, you're going to know exactly who I took after, because I look just like him. But yeah, he always sends me the best recipes to try. When I seen these apple cider cake mix cookies, I knew I had to try them. In a large bowl, you're going to add in a box of vanilla cake mix, and I try to stick to Duncan Hines, because for some reason, Betty Crocker has decided to make their cake mixes smaller. It's crazy. And here's the fun part. You're going to add in 4 packets of the spiced apple cider mix. So if I have any apple cider fans out there, trust me, you're going to love these. And to give these cookies even more flavor, we're adding in 3/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, along with 2 eggs and half a cup of oil. Or you can do half a cup of melted butter instead of the oil, but it will give them a different texture. Now mix until just combined. I do love the flavor of butter, but I have found when I make cake mix cookies, if I use butter, they don't spread as much. And that's good for a lot of cookies, but with these, I wanted them to spread just a little bit. Now I'm adding in 3/4 cup of caramel bits. You can find these where you find all the chocolate chips in the baking aisle at the grocery store. The recipe called for the actual soft caramels, you know, the ones that are individually wrapped in the little plastic wrappers. But I thought these would be much better. I folded those in, and this batter is very thick. I've got a cookie sheet here lined with a silicone liner. And I'm using a 2 tablespoon size cookie scoop. That way all my cookies are the same size. And these do spread a little, so make sure you don't have them too close together. And after I got all those cookies on there, I had about 1/4 of a cup of those caramel bits left, so I used a few of those to add on top. Now these are going to bake in a preheated 350-degree oven. The recipe says for 8 to 10 minutes, but let me show you what happens if you leave them in for 10 minutes. I'm showing you the good and the not so good. If you leave them in for 10 minutes, those caramels will burn. But look at this second batch. I left them in for only 7 minutes and they came out perfect. Cookies don't always look done when they're actually done, so it's better to be safe than sorry. These were so good, and I love me a good cake mix cookie. There are really so many different variations you can make with them. Change up the flavor of cake mix. You can change up the flavor, like you can change up the add-ins and make it your own. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You may also like these. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more easy recipes, and I will see you in the next one.